Well, when we redesigned the magazine in 2013, the magazine hadn't been redesigned since the late 90s. So if you think about what happened in photography in those years and what happened to publishing in those years, both industries had been completely upended. So we were really thinking about what does it mean to make a photography magazine, what does it mean to make a print magazine, and we really decided that there was an opportunity to double down on print, to really kind of emphasize what you can do in print that you can't do on Instagram, that you can't do on a website, which is to slow down a conversation, to make something permanent, or more permanent, and to create context, because I think one of the things that we were seeing with the rise of social media and a lot of blogs was that some were great, but we saw, there were a lot of images floating around, detached from context, detached from a kind of narrative in which they were made. So we felt like Aperture could really be a space to talk about photographs in a way that where we didn't see that conversation happening, which was very much in tune with our history of the magazine.
Yes.
The magazine was founded in 1952 by a group of amazing individuals: Ansel Adams, Dorothea Lange, Minor White, Beaumont and Nancy Newhall, among others. So we inherit this kind of intimidating history. So we at once have this obligation, I think, to honor that history, the intelligence and care that went into creating the magazine in the first place, but then also to acknowledge that it's 2019, so photography doesn't look like it did in 1952, so how do we kind of maintain the spirit of the publication, its seriousness, but also taking account of the way in which the medium and the conversations have evolved since then. So I do think there's a really exciting space for print now. I think you see that in terms of the rise of just bespoke magazines, specialized magazines, niche publications. Those are the publications that survive in print. They have dedicated audiences that support them. Aperture, the founders always talked about the idea of a shared community of interest. And that was the language from the original mission statement in 1952, and that's a language that we continue to think about, like how do we build a community around a magazine? And I think tonight's event is actually like a really great expression of that idea, that you bring people together for a conversation. And we do that with each issue of the magazine. We activate the magazine through exhibitions, through public programming, and it really is about bringing people together. So the Mexico City issue is the latest in a series that we do that focus on the photographic culture of a specific city. These issues, they're not meant to be completely comprehensive, nor could they. It's really about showing a cross-section of photography, both looking at the history of photography in a particular city, looking at contemporary photographers, looking at kind of what kind of curatorial work and research is happening in a particular place, and then putting together a selection of stories, portfolios, and interviews for our audience. And I think one thing that's important to understand is that the audience, what might be familiar to you here in Mexico City isn't necessarily familiar to our readers. So it really is about introducing our readers to the incredibly rich, complex history of photography here. So it's a partial glimpse, but we hope it's a meaningful one. A number of our most successful issues in recent years have really looked at the intersection of photography and society. We did an issue called On Feminism that was looking at how feminist thought had shaped photography as much as photography had shaped feminist thought, and that was a really popular issue. We did an issue called Future Gender that was looking at representations of transgender lives in photography. That was also enormously successful. We did an issue around incarceration and prisons in the United States. And I think, photography has, I think, a unique power to address social issues of grave importance. Just to go back to our On Feminism issue, when we released that issue, we thought that, we hoped that Hillary Clinton was going to be president right when it was coming out. The timing worked in a very different way. So I think, when you see the conversations that are happening today, you see that these, addressing these topics through photography is as urgent as ever. Photography can often be very insular, and I think the more and more we can open that conversation up, the more rich and exciting it is.
Gobierno de México.